I'm about to do the scariest thing that one can do with their knitting. I'm going to cut it, because that's exactly what steeking is. Steeking is most commonly used in Fair Isle knitting when you're making a sweater. And Fair Isle knitting is when you're knitting with more than one color and you're maintaining a pattern, like a snowflake pattern or something. And you want to be able to knit this in the round. Knitting Fair Isle in the round makes it much easier to keep good tension throughout the whole sweater, and it's much easier to keep the pattern going if you never have to purl with Fair Isle. So knitting a Fair Isle pullover, you can see that you can pretty much knit the whole sweater in a tube, but when you want to make a Fair Isle cardigan, it needs to be cut up the front. So rather than ever having to purl a row, we knit the whole tube and then cut the front of it so that it'll be a cardigan. This is also useful on the sleeves. You knit the whole tube from the bottom of the sweater up to the shoulders, and then cut here for the sleeves and cut here for a cardigan. So you really only want to do this with sticky animal fiber yarn, like a wool or something that will felt. This won't work. Your work will just come unraveled if you do this with any other kind of fiber, like a cellulose fiber, a cotton, a linen, an acrylic fiber, anything else. But traditional Fair Isle patterns are knit in wool anyway. Well, let's take a look at my work here. I knit this little Fair Isle sample, and as you can see, this is not knit in the round. This is knit flat. And this will be a good example of showing you how difficult it is to keep tension when you're knitting a flat Fair Isle piece. Look at these tan stitches over here. They're huge compared to the other stitches, and I did my best to keep my tension even throughout this whole piece. Now this tan column right here is actually called the steek. I knit this in a different color because this is where I'm going to cut. And you can make your steek decorative and as many columns wide as you like. I'm just going to do one column wide here. And this method I'm using is something that I learned from a Meg Swanson book. It's a crocheted steek. And normally you'd want to do this in a color that's going to match everything else you have going there. You need a crochet hook and then the yarn that you're matching everything up with. The first thing you want to do is crochet chain a couple stitches. Let's do 2. Now when we look at this, we normally look at knit stitches as a series of V's, and that's what we're going to do, but we're going to be working with half stitches. So I have the V that is the steek, and I have the stitch next to it that is in red. I'm going to be looking at picking up 1/2 of the red stitch and 1/2 of the tan stitch. But the first thing I want to do is secure my crochet chain down here at the bottom, and I'm just going to attach this into the cast on row. Okay. Now I didn't start the Fair Isle until the second, no, that's the cast on. The very bottom stitch is not in tan. So this is kind of an exception to the rule of the rest of it. I'm going to grab 1/2 of this first red stitch and 1/2 of what would be the tan stitch, but I cast on all in one color, so they're both red. And crochet that together. Okay, now this is the easier part. Again, I'm looking at the left half of the red stitch and the right half of the tan stitch. I'm going to go in through both of those, wrap it and pull it through. I'm going to do this all the way up. I've never seen steeking done on anything as bulky as this. You understand that I'm using this super bulky wool so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, here's my last one here. I know you're all just hanging around waiting to watch me cut into it. Okay, then I secure it there in the bind off row. I'm going to chain a couple, cut the yarn, and finish off the chain. So we started with the work facing the right direction with the V's this way. Now the second half of the steek, we're going to turn the work upside down so that we can work the same two halves of the stitch on the way down. So I slip knot and chain a couple just like before. This is going to be the exact same process, just working from the top down. Oops. Okay. Half of the red, half of the tan. This is a mess of threads all over the place, but all of these things can of course be woven in. And this crocheted steek is not only a way of securing the stitches so things don't unravel, but it also makes things fold over really nicely so that you don't have any ends poking out. My last one here. It's difficult to see. Okay, secure this in the cast on row. Okay, that is the steek, the crocheted steek in there, and you can still see the column of tan stitches. If you pull apart the column of tan stitches, that's where we're going to cut, the ladders between the tan stitches there. And I'm really exaggerating this so you can see it. Now when you do this, you of course want to be careful not to cut anything except for those ladders between there. Okay, and now it is cut. And if the steek starts to do its work, see here, it folds over right at the steek, and all of the pokey ends are sticking up here out of the way. Isn't that great? You can also see why you'd want the crocheted steek to be in a nice color that complements everything, because it definitely shows. And normally when you're doing a cardigan, this is where you're going to attach a button band to knit this way, to make a button band for a sweater. Not so scary after all. That's steeking.